Now let's fast forward to the 50s, and there's a huge disparity in values of like gull wings nowadays. Gull wings as well as 300 SL Roadsters. If you're finding a regular, when I say regular, I mean fully restored Mercedes-Benz 300 SL gull wing, I can't believe it, it was only, I feel like it was yesterday, but maybe it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, those were $200,000. Now they're upwards of $2 million if they're a barn find. If they're not a barn find, they go into like 1.1 to maybe 1.4, 1.5 million. So there's so many things that get into this that affect collector car value. Then there are things like, okay, what does the market want? And this is where we get into a significant gray area. And it's kind of a pun here because it has to do with gray hair as well. Like right now what's happening is you're seeing cars, pre-war cars, not Duesenbergs, not Dietrich Body Packards, but I mean like the run-of-the-mill Ford Model A, that kind of stuff. Pre-war cars are starting to go down in value, and the main reason they are going down in value, I don't mean huge amounts, but they still are going downward in value because there's less people that want them. And there's no nice way to say this, those folks are kind of dying off, the people who grew up with them. Because a lot of what affects collector car value is what was the nostalgia around the car. Like, I have no nostalgia for a Ford Model A, but I have a hell of a lot of nostalgia for a 93 Mazda RX-7, or I have a hell of a lot of nostalgia for a 93 Toyota Supra, or even a Buick GNX, which is why 10 years ago, those cars were worthless. But recently, I put an offer in on an RX-7 R1 for 32 grand. The car had no miles. The guy laughed at me and told me I was trying to steal the car from him. 32 grand for a used Mazda RX-7. So what's happening now is there's more people that are my age that have disposable income, so they value cars that they grew up with. I'm going to bring a car on the show soon. One of my neighbors basically bought out, not basically, he actually bought it out from under me. And that's another car that's going up in value, a 928, the GTS model now. It's the last of the 928. It's the most powerful of the 928. But what's interesting about that is you could still have gotten that in a stick. So the most valuable one is a GTS in good condition with a manual transmission. That car was 40, 50 grand all day long. Only a couple of years ago, one sold at Monterey, what was it? Just this past August for $120,000. Now granted, someone was hitting the bidding bar there, but I guarantee you, away from Monterey, that car probably would have sold anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000. So this is where we get into how much gray hair affects the value of a car. So the more gray hair of the people that really lusted after the car in their teens, like Model A's, they're mostly gone, their values start to go down a bit. But when you get into like all these post-war cars, Ferraris and stuff like, big stuff like that, there's always going to be a market for a blue chip car like a 250 Ferrari, or what's happening with the 300 SLs. But then you're starting to see these 911s going up in price significantly. Now, I think that's a bubble, to be very honest with you, for the run-of-the-mill stuff. Like the 993s going up to the crazy numbers, I think you should take your profit and walk away from those at this point. But a 73 RS, that's never going to go down in value. A 67 soft window Targa, never going to go down in value. You see where I'm going with this stuff? So a lot of it has to do with the people that lusted after those cars and how old they are now. So that's why you're starting to see like fire chickens, Firebirds, that are now $120,000. You guys have seen Dickwinkles on the show how many times, and I still beat him up for selling not one, but two Pontiac Firebird Super Duties. He had both were 73s, both had a stick, both were perfectly restored. Granted, he got all the money in the world, especially for the second one, but they're still going up in value. I think there's going to be a time, not too far in the distant future, that those cars are going to be double what he got out of it, and I'm going to say, nah, 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 I told you so. Okay, so I think I've rambled on enough. Now, am I saying that this is a hard and fast, all this stuff is a hard and fast rule? Absolutely not. Think of this as just a set of general parameters here. If you want to know more about this topic, I will be more than happy to bring Dave Kinney onto the show, and Dave has been on the show multiple times before. He is literally, you know the old saying, well, he wrote the book on X. Dave Kinney literally writes the book on classic car values. He writes the Haggerty price guide, and he has been doing it since before I've known him. He knows everything about classic car values. So if you guys want to know more about this, let me know, and I will bring him on the show again, and he and I will geek out for hours on this topic, because there's a lot of nuances here on what affects collector car value. All I've done is brush some broad strokes to give you some parameters that will hopefully send you down your way in getting into the collector car hobby. And if you want to see more collector cars on the show, start watching my old episodes with collector cars, and as those views go up, we will do more collector cars, because I would love to drive more old cars.